So forgive my voice, actually pretty decent right now, but I may need you guys to read some stuff for the class. So yesterday we did the retake for Unit 2, Part 2. I've not updated the scores, hopefully getting that done by today. So that way I could send out invitations for Saturday school this Saturday. And really, I encourage everyone to go. I think it's a great opportunity. Normally, like if you want tutoring, like private tutoring for any subject, like whether it's like high school, college, whatever, it's like a minimum of $40 an hour. And I know some people that charge like $100 an hour, and there's really like not a lot you can do in an hour. I think you're at that school, I don't know. So keep that in mind. When the school offers free tutoring, and they have certified teachers there, not just like random students helping other students, like actual teachers, like take advantage of it. They'll help you with whatever you ask them to help you with. They're not necessarily like, oh honey, what do you need help with? Like you need to ask, you need to use your words. And then also it's just like a quiet place to work. So that's why there's not a ton of people like in your face asking you what you need to ask when you need help. I do have tutoring today after school. I only have it on Wednesdays. So if it's important to you, you need to make arrangements to be here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I will be sending invites to Saturday Academy moving forward to anyone that has an F. Granted, we just took a unit test, so hopefully some of those Fs change and they don't have to come again. But if you're ever failing around the time that Saturday Academy is coming up, I will be inviting you. I will be messaging your parents, because really the other option, if you fail, is summer school, which there's no guarantee that that's going to be free anymore. It was free for the past few years because of like the COVID funding, but there's like, we don't know if it's going to be free this summer. So then the other option is for you to retake the class, like we have some upperclassmen. I've had juniors and seniors before, and I still do actually, that, you know, they just failed on how many times they tried, but they kept failing. And this is like, you need this class to graduate. There's no way around it. So you just take it over and over again. But not just that, you need 4 math credits to graduate. So while you're still trying to take Algebra 1, 2, those students are also taking like geometry, Algebra 3, 4, because like when else are they going to take it? So just keep that in mind. Sacrificing like 3 hours on a Saturday to at least get you to the 60% is like the bare minimum. I hope that your parents agree with me on that. But any questions about anything I've said so far? Okay, you'll know your grade is updated for the test when it says retake given during class time, higher score is given. So your first score might be your higher score. Usually you improve at least a little bit, but you'll know for sure that that's your set score once you see that comment in there. So questions, comments, okay. Now we are on unit 3, which is a really short unit. There's 9 lessons total, and we're even combining some of them because honestly, it's, in my opinion, pretty easy. So it's 2 variable statistics. We did statistics in unit 1, but it was just 1 variable at a time. Now it's 2 things at a time. And yeah, we'll be taking the unit test and retaking the test for it by Thanksgiving break. So before Thanksgiving break, you'll already have gone through the unit test. So here's your warm-up. Can someone read out the first part to the class? Because I'm like, my voice is already going. Any volunteers, nice and loud, to read it? Okay, some of the results. Can someone else read the bullet points for us?
including 100 different students. 40 students said they prefer using pen more than pencil. 45 students said they prefer using online paper more than line paper. 10 students said they prefer line paper and pen. 45 students said they prefer pencil and line paper.
Okay, great, thank you. So how many of you honestly stopped reading like halfway through? That's like that's a lot of information. I wouldn't blame you if you were like, okay, that's a lot. Maybe start with the questions to see what exactly they're trying to figure out. Because usually you read it one time to see like what is even going on, a second time to see like what you're solving for, and then like a third time to actually like see that it makes sense. So first question, how many students prefer using pencil more than pen? Table 5, can you tell me? 60? Anyone get something different? All right, and I don't have my answer key in front of me yet, so let's actually look at that. So prefer using pencil more than pen. So definitely not the ones that prefer pen more than pencil, but how many students total were surveyed? 100. We know that 40 prefer pen more than pencil. So then what's left over, 100 minus 40 is 60. So that's a reasonable answer. Questions on that? All right. Now, how many students prefer using pen and unlined paper? So 2 things at once. Table 6, did we get that? Okay, so let's do some problem solving as a class then. Can you tell me how many prefer using pen over pencil at least? So just a pen right now. 40. So I know when we're looking at them combined, it shouldn't be more than 40 because only 40 of them prefer using pen. Now for the pen and the unlined paper, let's see. 45 students prefer using unlined paper, so that's not really helping me. 10 students say they prefer lined paper and pen. 45 students said they prefer pencil and lined paper. Did anyone consider making a table for this? Did anyone make a table for it? Okay, well, with all of that, because even I'm like having a hard time trying to figure it out just from the phrasing. The first one was easy. Our lesson today is actually called two-way tables. So let's make a table based on the information. What's the stuff that's being compared? Table 7, can you tell me one thing that's being compared? What do you think? Okay, now in their survey, were they asking people, do you prefer pen and unlined paper? Like, do you think that they were asking that? I don't think that they were asking that. I think they were asking, do you prefer pen or pencil? And then I think they asked people, do you like lined or unlined paper? Not like, do you like pen and unlined paper? Do you like pen and lined paper? Do you like pencil and lined paper? Like, I don't think they were asking that. All right. Now, let's also include our totals in here. Kind of ran out of room here, but let's put a total. So let's fill in what we know. The total people surveyed is like what I usually call a grand total. So I would put that right here. where we have our total people, our other total people, that needs to add up to 100 no matter what. I shouldn't have more than 100 anyway, other than. All right, and then if we have 40 students that prefer using pen more than pencil, so I'm gonna put a 40 there. Oh, I guess I don't know how many of each. Let me put it here. Oh, for the total, I'll put it down here. So 40 that prefer pen, that means 60 must prefer pencil. I didn't want to put it up here because I don't know exactly how many of each want the line or unlined paper from those people yet. Does that make sense? I put it in like the total row column. All right, now we have 45 students that they prefer using unlined paper more than lined paper. So I, again, don't want to put that here because I don't know how many of those people like pen or pencil, but I will put it in our total. So that was 45 prefer using unlined, so I'll put that here. And what's 100 minus 45? 55. So, because if 45 like unlined, then that means 55 must like lots. So they're like the two options. Now let's see what else we can figure out. So 10 students said they prefer lined paper and pen at the same time. So where should that go? Top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. Okay, pen and lined paper, I agree. And then 45 students said they prefer pencil and lined paper, which honestly, we could have figured that out ourselves because we knew how many total liked line, and then 10 of them liked pen, so the other 45 must like pencil. But they didn't tell us anything to fill in these parts. Table 8, can you tell me what should go here based on what we know? If 40 people like pens and we know 10 of them like lined paper, how many like unlined paper? 3. And then table 9, can you tell me what goes here? 50. So they didn't tell us enough to fill every single box, but they gave us enough to like figure it out. Does that make sense? Isn't that a better way to organize what's going on? So then the answer to number 2, how many prefer using pen and unlined? Class? 30, because if we look at the table we just made, 30 is where that intersects. And how many students prefer using pencil and unlined paper? 15. All right, questions, comments, concerns? So if that was easy for you to figure out the missing pieces, kind of like a puzzle, then great, you'll at least get one question right on the Illuminate portion of your next test. So filling in the table based on the information is one of the skills. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay. So we're gonna move on to the next example, which is about fruit flies. Also, here's how they set up their table, which is literally exactly like ours. Just so you know. So that's what we were trying to show you, that it's effective to look at it when it's in table form than reading just a bunch of different paragraphs. But that's why it's a two-way table, because you have variables compared over here to a different set of variables and then comparing them. Your grand total is always like bottom right corner. That's the total people surveyed. Okay, now sometimes they don't include total rows or total columns, but when and if they do, you could always add them in yourself. That would give you your total people surveyed. Okay, but now about the fruit flies. So a scientist is trying to determine the role of specific genes by looking at traits of fruit flies. The offspring of 2 fruit flies are examined to determine the color of their eyes and whether they have curled wings or standard wings. 80 offspring are randomly selected and the results are recorded in this two-way table. So you within your groups answer these questions. Be able, because I'll rotate, I'll assign a reporter, all the things. Describe what the 17 represents. How many selected fly offspring had white eyes? How many selected fly offspring had standard wings? How are you able to figure all that out? You able to remember? Table 9. So table 9, describe what the 17 represents. So fruit flies with both the curled wings and red eyes. All right, any questions on that? Okay, that is right. So just find where it is on the table or make a table if you don't have a table. And then see like what is basically intersecting it. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. That's them having both of those traits at the same time. That's not the total that have curled wings. That's not the total that have red eyes, but that's the total that has both of them at the same time. You guys don't need to know this word that I'm about to say, but we call that joint relative frequency because it's like 2 things at once, 2 characteristics at once, like joint, like a joint bank account. All right, table 1. How many selected fly offspring have white eyes? What do you think? Now, I don't see 18 on this table, so how do we come to that conclusion? Okay, good. So this one didn't give you the totals, but hopefully you could figure that out. You could add in total columns and total rows, and then that'll give you even more information. If we want the total that have white eyes, that total would go over here. So like the rows should add up to the row total. The column should add up to the column total. So make sense on that? Okay. Table 2. How many selected fly offspring had standard wings? 58. And what did you add together for that? All right, that makes sense to me. Any questions on that? Okay. So that's why I combined these 2 options. They're pretty straightforward. Can you read the table? And then pretty soon we're going to learn how to calculate relative frequency. All right, but 4 through 7 is down here. They're just not numbered. So table 3. You guys have number 4. I have, what does the 13 represent for number 4? Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm a little out of it right now. Standard wings and white eyes at the same time. All right, questions on that? So then table 4, you'll have number 5. How many selected fruit fly offspring have red eyes and standard wings?
45.
45. Right here in the table. That's where they intersect. Table 5. How many selected fruit fly offspring are represented in the table? 80. Now, that's not on our table, but you have a few ways that you could figure that out. You could figure out your totals for really the rows or the columns like we did over here. And then see what that adds up to. So like 45 with 17. is 62. And then 62 plus 18 class is 80. I can't really fit it right here, but that would be like my bottom right corner where the two totals intersect. They should all add up to 80. Now, it also said in the word problem. So that's another indicator. How many were surveyed? How many were examined? That should be your grand total. So yeah, 80. Now, where am I? Table 6. How many selected fruit fly offspring have pearls made? 22. And the math you did for that was 17 plus 1. All right, so easy cheesy. Any questions? Okay, so now you're going to fill in a table. So where it says let's fill in a table, that's going to be like the U tribe. I'll let you guys do that one completely, start to finish. Some of you might have already, like I've already seen some that are that. Great. The back, we're going to introduce relative frequency, which is the second part of the lesson, which is also pretty easy. So right now you're doing the part that says, let's fill in the table as a U tribe. Yes. Yes. So this is the U tribe right here. Start again. Yeah. So when you go up there, you'll just have to press like the pen button. And then like pick a color and then just like touch screen. There's like a pen button. You see it? Under the arrow. And then fill in one box. Yeah. It might be a little delayed. Okay, never mind. You'll just have to tell me then. 78 for the bottom right one. So, oh well. I don't know why it's not doing that. It should work. But anyway, 78 bottom right. So logically, let's see if that would make sense before we continue. The bottom right box is always supposed to be like the total people surveyed or examined or whatever. So we're 78 people surveyed in this. So then, yeah, that'd be a reasonable one to fill in right now. Table 8, give me another one to fill in.
Top right, I got 56.
Top right, 56. So let's see. That would be the total people that prefer video announcements. That's so right there. It doesn't say video announcements and something else, right? So that should be a total. Good. Table 9. Like this one? Yeah. All right. Now, I did say, like, give me a box, but I think, like, we would need more information before we're able to know that this one's 20. So can you tell me, like, how you figured out that one's 20? Okay, so 30 students want the announcements done during first hour. So that I would put here because it doesn't say like first hour and I want them to be on the intercom or first hour and I want them to be video announcement. So I would put that here. So it looks like I still need a little bit more before I come to that being 20. So what else did you put in before putting the 20? I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think like we need a little more before we can fill in. Sorry, what? Okay. Can someone help us out? Josiah?
The bottom for first hour and total is good. Oh, cheers.
So what we're trying to figure out, because I'm not saying that's wrong. I did say like just give me a box. But based on like the information we have, I just want to know, like, how'd you figure that out? You would have had to fill in other boxes prior to that. So can anyone tell me, like, what you would have had to fill in prior to that? Okay, so 78 minus 56 is 22. That goes here. Parker, what were you gonna say? Okay, 12 students want intercom announcements during third hour. Notice, like they said, these two things at the same time. So I need to put them where it would be those two things at the same time. Intercom, third hour. Okay, now we're getting closer. So, okay. All right, 22 minus 12 is 10. And then 30 minus 10 is 20. So isn't that right? Yes. Okay, and that's how you would logically go there. So if you were watching and you were like, where's that 20 coming from? That's where it's coming from. You work with what you're given, which we put down everything that we're given so far. And then you just have to fill in the blanks. So then table question or answer? Okay, give me another one. Okay, 78 minus 30 is 48. So then, yeah, that'll go here. And then last but not least, what goes up here? 36. So you might have done them in a different order, but you definitely have to start with what you're given and then fill in the missing pieces. And this should all like add up. Like these should add up to the column total. These should add up to the row total. These totals should match up to your grand total. If you're like doing it and something's not adding up, you made a mistake somewhere. All right, but question. All right, now this is the correct table. On the back, I'm going to show you what a relative frequency table is. So it's actually already given to you. This right here is what we call a relative frequency table. So notice, it's a notice and wonder. So we'll just do it really briefly. And like right now as a class. So what are we noticing that's different from this table to the last table, Josiah?
They're all decimal.
They're all decimal. So for your relative frequency, anytime you hear that word, so I would write what I'm writing. Anytime you see that word, your answer should be a decimal or a percent. It should never be a whole number unless we're talking about decimals and the whole number is 1. Okay? So when you see, I want the relative frequency of blah, 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 your answer should be a decimal or a percent. Anything else we're noticing about this table? Maybe stuff that's like similar to the last table. Haley? Okay, so the same variables. So I made a relative frequency table based on the last example. So can anyone tell me how I might have come up with some of these numbers? Any clue how we're getting these numbers? So relative frequency is a way to like interpret the data. Okay, yeah. It shows me like how frequent something occurs. So for example, we had 78 people surveyed. The way that I got this would be doing 78 divided by 78. Doesn't that equal 1? Okay. Then I'll just pick a random one, like this one. How many total people wanted the video announcement? 56. Divide that by the grand total, 78. Try it out in your calculator. Is this the decimal that you get? So that's how you're figuring it out. And if I wanted the decimal to be a percent, so like they will usually use both about the same amount. How can you convert any decimal to a percent? Not division.
Oh.
So we made the fraction a decimal by dividing. Now what if I want to make it a percent? You got to move the decimal. Do you know what direction? Due to the right. Personally, I think like that's hard to remember, like what direction and things like that. So I always say to convert a decimal to percent, you times by 100%. And yes, that is still moving the decimal to places to the right. The kids always forget what way they move it and things like that. If you want to make a decimal a percent times by 100%, I can tell you 71.8% of people would rather the video announcements. Does that make sense? All right. Now, what hour do they prefer? Okay, they prefer third hour because the number is higher, which you probably saw that in the last table, the number was higher, but now we can quantify it. If you times that by 100%, 61.5% of people want it in third hour, so you know. So there you go. Questions on that? All right, so relative frequency tables, or just if they ask for a relative frequency, your answer should be a decimal or a percent, whatever your other answers are in. We have one more activity today, city cat, country cat. Let's read it together, and you'll practice finding relative frequencies. So relative frequency, think decimal or percent, but then for the rest of it, you just need to be able to read it carefully. So let's see this next example. So 200 people were asked if they prefer dogs or cats and whether they live in a rural or urban setting. The actual values collected from the survey, so like not decimals or percents, but the actual values are in this first table. First, I said make a relative frequency table. But really, I don't know that we have time for that. So that's not as important. I didn't see you having to make one on your test. So just answer these 6 questions about the table. It's all about like reading it carefully and knowing out of what amount to divide by. It won't always be the grand total of 200. It could be a different total. So work through those questions based on the table. All right, we want a percentage, so make sure your answer is a percentage of those surveyed live in an urban area and prefer dogs. What do you guys think?
Got it. 59.7%.
59.7%. Okay, so let's see if that's right. Class, how many people live in an urban area and prefer dogs? 80. So that's where both of those things cross on my table. And I'm dividing it by what? By the 200, which is how many people were surveyed. They said, what percentage of those surveyed? So then you do 80 divided by 200. And then times by 100% if you want a percentage. So what should it actually be, the percentage? 40%. That make sense? Okay. I knew there'd be like some errors, so don't feel bad. Table 2, the next one. So among the people surveyed who prefer dogs, what percentage of them live in an urban setting? 51.9%. Let's see if that's right. So among the people surveyed who prefer dogs, so that means like, that should be my denominator. When it says out of this many people, among this many people, how many total people prefer dogs? 104. So that should be my denominator. Out of those people, how many of them live in an urban setting? 80. So out of the people that prefer dogs, we want to know how many of them live in an urban setting. So 80 divided by 104, 76.9. So, like, I could throw a lot of vocab at you and tell you, oh, that's conditional relative frequency, blah, blah, blah. But, like, it's really just reading it closely. You need to know what you need to divide and what you need to divide out of. Your answers should never be bigger than 100%. Okay? Now, number 3. The percentage, or table 3 and number 3. What percentage of people surveyed who live in an urban setting prefer dogs? So table 3, how many people were surveyed? Okay, so that should be my denominator because it said what percentage of people surveyed. So out of the people surveyed, how many of those people live in an urban setting and prefer dogs? Questions on that class? Was 80 divided by 200? 0.4, and then you times by 100%. That gives us 40%. And I'll check my book, so I'm pretty sure, like, unless I'm reading it wrong. That should be it. What'd you get?
I got 60%.
I read it at 50%.
Oh, you're right. You're right. See, that's why I said, you gotta tell me. Because it said, I just stopped at people surveys. So that I lied. What percentage of people surveyed who live in an urban setting? I stopped reading too early. So how many people live in an urban setting? 134. That's how many people live in an urban setting. And of those people, how many of them prefer dogs? Okay, now let's try that. 80 divided by 134 is 0.597-ish. And then times it by 100%, 59.7%. Depends on what you round to. Questions on that? Okay. So good catch there. I was like, why would we have the same answer? That's why, because I stopped reading too quickly. Table 4, number 4. How many of the people responded that they prefer dogs and live in an urban setting? I think everyone's answering but table 4. So now we're not wanting a percentage or a decimal. We just want to know how many of the people responded that they prefer dogs and live in an urban setting. 80. Prefer dogs, live in an urban setting. Didn't say decimal, didn't say percent, didn't say relative frequency. They just want to know how many people. So 80. Table 5, number 5. Among the people surveyed, are there more people who prefer dogs or cats? All right, so let's look at our totals. And the totals for cats and dogs, yeah, more people prefer dogs. Not by a whole lot, but 104 is greater than 96. So yeah. Table 6, number 6. So your pet food company has access to a billboard in a rural setting. Would you recommend advertising for dog food or cat food? Okay, so let's see why. Rule setting. Look at what they said or what they prefer. What do they clearly prefer, cats or dogs? So they should make a billboard advertising for cat food because more people seem to have cats in that area. Make sense? Even though overall in the whole survey, they prefer dogs. All right, sorry the lesson took a long time, but hopefully it makes a lot more sense now. You do have practices in Schoology for Unit 3 already. They're separated, but they're like 5 questions each, like nothing would be wrong. Okay. So you take them, do them. That'll make you ready for the quiz. That'll be on Monday. Not this, yeah, next Sunday. Yeah.